Property Podcast. I'm Simon, and I've been investing in property for over 20 years. And if you're an active landlord or planning your next property investment, this podcast is for you. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I would really appreciate it if you could tell a couple of other property people about the Business of Property Podcast. It really is the best way to spread the word. This week, I'm going to look at the current property market. And I've got some data specifically about sort of the current state, so right up to August this year, 2024. And then I'm going to compare that to the same data in August 2023 and August 2022. And sort of put out some comparisons over that time period and look at what has changed. And then also speculate a little bit on what might be coming next for the next few months of this year. And see whether that's going to follow similar trends to the past couple of years or not. So all of this data is coming from PATMA, a weekly report that PATMA puts together. So every week on a Monday morning, PATMA crunches the very latest data right up to the Sunday before that Monday. And it then provides that data for both England and more specific local areas as well. So PATMA customers who are subscribed to PATMA Prospector Pro can access this data for the whole of England or their own local areas at any time. However, if you don't want to subscribe to PATMA at the moment, then if you join the Business of Property email list, of which there is a link in the show notes, or in fact, if you join the PATMA mailing list as well, then every Monday you will receive the England-wide report for free by email. It's that report is just made up of a collection of graphs that sort of show and reveal this data. So it's not quite as detailed as you can access if you have full access to PATMA Prospector Pro, but I think it's still really good resource, and I hope that you could potentially enjoy it along with the thousands of others who already receive that email every Monday. Again, the links to join those mailing lists will be in the show notes. So let's get started. If you are watching this on YouTube, rather than listening to it as a more traditional podcast, there are some graphs, or there will be some graphs on the screen for you to look at as I'm sort of going through some of these numbers. But don't worry, you don't need to see the graphs. I will be talking the numbers, I will be reading them out, so they will all be in the audio version as well. So first of all, I'm going to look at the average, and in this case this is a mean, of the new listing prices. So this is new properties coming onto portals. It's not necessarily reflective of what properties are actually selling for. Part of that we'll sort of talk about in a few moments, but it is reflective of what sellers and agents are sort of trying to achieve in the market. And we can look at this for the sort of August 2024. I'm just going to pull out, the data is split by sort of the size of the property, by the number of bedrooms, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of them specifically. So for a one-bed property, the average listing price, initial listing price in August 2024 was £257,873. And if we go back to August 2023, that number was £260,083. So that's actually been a drop from 2023 to 2024 of 0.9% in the average one-bed property listing price in August. Now, if we go back another year and look at the numbers from August 2022, the average then was £259,133. Now, that means that from August 22 to August 23, there was a small increase, 0.4%, before the then larger drop of 0.9%. And overall, across that time, prices have actually gone down. So 2 years on, initial listing prices for one-bed properties are lower now than they were 2 years ago. So for three-bedroom properties in August 2024, the average listing price was £332,946. And then if we compare that back with August 2023, we are looking at £331,424. And that was an increase of 0.5%. We go back again to August 2022, and the average 3-bed listing price was £332,307. Now, the 22 to 23 was a 0.3% fall before the 0.5% increase. And you can see the August 2022 to August 2024 number has just increased a little bit by a few £100. So while these numbers are changing over time, it's barely. Over the last 2 years, we're basically looking at the same listing prices for properties across England as a whole between August 2022 and August 2024. Now, across that time, inflation has run at approximately 10% over the 2 years combined. So that's effectively, give or take, and I'm rounding here because the inflation numbers aren't precise, and I'm sort of ignoring the little movements in the property prices, but that effectively means a 10% fall in 2 years of an average property, or an average property listing price anyway. Now, as I mentioned, that doesn't necessarily mean that properties are actually going to sell at this kind of price. And of course, we always see properties being reduced. Properties come onto the market, and then some of those are priced too optimistically, and they have to be reduced before they will actually sell. And looking again at a comparison over the last few years, August 2024, 18% of the properties on the market in August had a price reduction applied to that listing. Looking back in August 2023, again, 18% of properties listed on the market in August had a price reduction. If we go back to August 2022, though, only 13% of properties on the market at that point saw a price reduction. So one thing that I think is perhaps more interesting than actually looking at these specific numbers for the individual months is the trend of what happens the following month, in September. So in September 2022, the number of reductions increased, went up to 18%. And in 2023, the number of reductions in September increased from 18 to 23%. So what's going to happen this year? Is it going to be that we will see a similar trend, and after the summer lull, people will be keen to get properties sold, and they will actually continue to apply reductions in order to try and encourage that to actually happen and take place? I think it might be a slightly different picture this year, given that we've also got the added market stimulus of reducing interest rates. So maybe we won't need to see those extra asking price reductions coming through in order to work for the market at the moment. But we shall see. Be interesting to see if the trend from the last 2 years continues into this year, or whether it's something different this year. Now, the time to sell, the time that a property is on the market for between being listed and actually being sold. Now, again, if you can see the graph on this one, the graph for this one is really quite a very distinct repeating shape. So if you want to go and look at the YouTube video for one particular graph, go and have a look at this point in the episode. So this is a good graph to see. But I'll read out the numbers. August 2024, 66 days is the average time for a property to be sold, or to be marked as sold on the portals anyway. If we go back to August 2023, it was 63 days. And if we go back to August 2022, it was 38 days. So the property market has been gradually slowing over the last couple of years. Although it hasn't changed that much in the last year, It actually did most of that slowing in the first of these 2 years that we're looking at. But the more distinct or sort of relevant thing here is to notice that over each year, there's a sort of minimum duration for properties to be on the market that happens around February, March time each year, and then gradually across the year, speeding up a little bit towards the end of the year, the amount of time that it takes to sell a property gradually increases during the year. And this happened during 2022, and it happened again during 2023, and it looks like it's happening again in 2024. So again, my question is, will this continue in 2024, or will the change in interest rates and the changes of market outlook be enough to counter that and encourage more buyers into the market to actually cut down that duration, that time the property is on the market? Or are interest rates still a bit too high to have that big an effect? Are people still too worried about the cost of living? Are people sort of going to wait a bit longer? Or will we see this turnaround? Will we see fewer price reductions applied? Will we see more properties being sold? Will we see that time on market being reduced in the next few months? Will this year have a different trend to the last couple of years? Or is it just going to be a repeat? Are we going to see the market continuing to slow down a bit as it heads towards the end of the year? There's obviously a slow peak in December when nobody really wants to be moving. Or is it, are we out of the woods as a property market? We shall see. I'll hopefully come back and do another one of these episodes, maybe not in a month, maybe in 2 months, one of those two anyway, and we'll see which way the data is pointing. So one more set of numbers I want to have a quick look at today is a set that paint a very different picture to the sales market, and that is, of course, the rental market. So again, the data in Patma is split down by the number of bedrooms for the size of the property. I'm just going to pull out a couple of them again to compare. For one-bed properties, in August 2024, the average asking rent was £1,431. If we go back to August 23, the average asking rent was £1,412. So that's a 1.3% increase over the year from August 23 to August 24. And that's not huge. And in fact, it's a little bit less than inflation has been over the last year. But it is still a noticeable increase. If we go back, however, to August 2022, the average one-bed asking rent was £1,232 a month. So the increase from August 2022 to August 2023 was 14.6%. Now that is above the inflation rate at that point, which was a little under 10%. And certainly across the 2 years, rent increases in one-bedroom properties has been inflation busting. So rents very strong over this period, at least for one-bed properties. A quick look at three-bed properties. August 2024, £1,610. August 2023, £1,526. So that's a 5.5% increase from August 2023 to August 2024 for three-bed properties. Now that again is inflation busting. So if we go down to August 2022, the asking rents then average of £1,388 for three-bed property, and that gives us a 10% increase from August 2022 to August 2023. So it's quite interesting that the rental markets for three-bed properties and one-bed properties have actually seen quite different changes over the last 2 years. However, in both situations, or both property sizes, they have been very strong growth, and they've seen significant increases in asking rents. And unlike asking prices for properties that are for sale, where people quite often negotiate reductions at the moment. So those initial asking prices are probably on the high side of what's actually being agreed. In the rental market, these asking prices are probably about what's being agreed. So I don't think we need to make any sort of adjustments after the fact for these numbers. So I think that the overall picture for the property market is that house sale prices have been very static for the last 2 years. And when you factor in inflation, that means that they've been falling, maybe around 10% when you allow for inflation. Rental prices have been increasing strongly over the last 2 years. In fact, more than inflation. So it's a very, very different picture in those two markets. And I think looking ahead to the end of this year, typically the data shows that we will see more properties having price reductions in the for sale market to try and encourage sales there. And despite that, the time on market will gradually increase out towards the end of the year, and properties will be hanging around on the markets and taking a bit longer to sell. However, this year is different. This year is different from last year. So will it be different enough to see that the property market taking a different picture over the next couple of months? Well, I'm curious to hear what you think. If you have an opinion on this, if you want to put your neck out and try and make a prediction, I'd be really interested to hear what that might be. Please do email me. You can reach me on show@thebusinessofproperty.com, and I will hopefully do another one of these episodes in 1 or 2 months. And if I've got any predictions in, I will read those out at that point and compare them to what's actually happened, what's actually being shown in the real data. So until next time, thank you very much for listening.